This is part 3 of What If Naruto Lost His Sight. Hope you all enjoyed this what if, and if you do then like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Start chapter. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 6. Hope you enjoy. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. Exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. 1 day later. My eyes snapped open, and having forgotten my predicament, I was startled not seeing anything. It wasn't till I shot up, looking around for something other than black, did I remember what happened. As if to remind me that things were less than good, a small ache started right behind my eyes. I shook off my thoughts before they could turn negative, instead opting to figure out how my body was feeling. My ribs were a lot better than the last time I checked. Just to make sure, I pressed a hand against them, and though there was still a bit of pain, it wasn't nearly as bad as it used to be. I could tell that my chakra was still messed up, but there was nothing I could really do about that. I was still exhausted, which either could be because of my screwy chakra, or adding to it. Either way, it wasn't much to be worried about either. So I laid back down on whatever I was laying on before. It was about then that I realized that I had no idea where I was. And since I couldn't exactly look, I had to guess. Well, my clothes were different, a long top made of some scratchy fabric. I don't think there were any pants with the ensemble, but that was kind of hard to tell because there was a sheet over me. By this alone, I could pretty much guess where I was, especially considering there was only one place I knew that smelled so strongly of antiseptic. Realizing I was taking up residence in the local hospital, I tensed. I didn't like the hospital, and they didn't really like me either. They never tried to help me unless ordered to by the Hokage. Usually they would either ignore me or try to stunt my healing process. Lucky for me, the same reason they hated me was the reason I didn't need to come here as often. Kyuubi has taken care of a lot of the injuries that should have ensured a trip to the hospital, though I still ended up here a fair amount due to lack of consciousness. Unfortunately, this seemed to be one of those times. I sat up, tossing the sheets off me before trying to get out of bed. I had just jumped down when my right arm was yanked back towards the bed by my elbow. As I stood unsteadily on my feet, I used my other hand to feel what was attached to my arm. It took me a couple seconds to figure out that it was actually an IV. I was just reaching to pull it out when a hand stopped me. Startled, I jumped back onto the bed, scrambling across till my head came in contact with the wall. "Naruto, it's me," I relaxed at the sound of Kakashi's voice. "You really have to stop being so startled when people sneak up on you." "I'm not," I got poked in my head, right where I had hit it, making me yelp a bit. "You sure? Because you look pretty nervous to me." "Don't like hospitals," I mumbled, rubbing my sore head. "Smells funny." "Can't argue with that." He sounded like he agreed, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't completely convinced. I heard a squeak off to my right, and I could only assume that it was from a chair. "Anyways, let's talk about your test." "But I won it. What more is there to talk about?" "You weren't listening to the explanation before the matches, were you?" In my defense, I had a lot on my mind at the time." "I'm sure you did. Anyways, those were the prelims. You now have a month to train for finals." "What? Why didn't he tell us before?" "He did, you weren't listen." "Oh yeah," I heard him sigh, probably shaking his head like he usually does when I do something like that. "Sensei, what awesome jutsus are you going to teach me?" "I'm not," I blinked, trying to figure out if he was joking with me. "I have to train Sasuke for his match against one of the Suna shinobi." "What? Why? And how does he know his opponent?" "Oh yeah, you were unconscious for that." I gave him the no-duh look, and he continued. "They pulled numbers out of a hat and put it into some elaborate graph thing. He has to go against Gaara, the redhead with the gourd." "What's so dangerous about him?" "His last opponent, Rock Lee, is in intensive care right now being treated. They're unsure if he can continue being a ninja." "Oh," I looked away, feeling bad for the spandex-wearing ninja. After all, he was the dead last of his year like me. He would have killed him if Guy hadn't stepped in. So I'm going to have to train myself, aren't I? Not necessarily. I was able to call in a few favors and got you a teacher for the month. How's that supposed to help? I didn't even bother with pretending to look at him. They'll probably try to teach me by showing me stuff, and we both know that won't work unless I miraculously get my sight back. Ah yes, we haven't figured out if your situation is permanent yet, have we? He didn't even phrase it as a question. Well, it seems pretty permanent to me, I said sourly, but was obviously ignored as I heard the chair get pushed back and a pair of feet padding across the ground. I'm going to see if you can get signed out of this place. His footsteps began to lead away from me. If so, we're going to go visit my friend. The medical nin that lives outside the village. Yep, if there's anything that can be done for you then she'll at least know about it. Be back soon. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in the hospital room for who knows how long. With Kakashi's tardy habits, I wouldn't be surprised if soon meant 5 hours from now, after he's flirted with every nurse in the building, then blame it on a cat again. I debated about just ditching him and leaving through the window, but considering I didn't even know if this room had a window, I decided that probably wouldn't be the best decision right now. Instead, I figured it would be better to at least find my clothes and get dressed, because there was no way I was meeting someone new in a hospital gown. First checking if my new goggles were in place, and finding that they actually were, I inched to the side of the bed in search for the nightstand I knew would be there. After finding it, I used my hands to check for my clothes. Throughout the 2 minutes it took to search the small table, I spilt a cup of water, jammed my fingers against the wall, and almost knocked my forehead protector to the floor. But didn't find my clothes. It took me a minute to tie it in place and make sure it was right side up before resuming my search for my clothes. So I began crawling to the end of the bed, thinking it might be there somewhere. But before I got there, my hand met empty air as my legs slipped off the edge of the bed, making me tumble to the floor. I laid there for a bit, my head spinning and my arm aching from my IV being yanked out in the fall. Itai, I murmured before righting myself so I was sitting on the floor. I heard several pairs of feet hurry down the hallway, giving me a bad feeling as my door shot open with a bang, those feet skidding to a halt at the same time. Hi, I tried to sound cheerful even though I had no clue who was there. Though I was pretty sure it was a flock of nurses that heard the thump and came running before they realized whose room it was. Nice weather we're having, huh? Uzumaki, one of them shouted, making my smile fade. Just from her voice I knew which nurse was at the in front of them all. She was the witchy-wiest nurse in the whole hospital, at least to me. To the other patients she was this sweet old lady that does everything she can for them. To me she was one of the main reasons I hate hospitals. She always gave me as many shots as she could get away with and the largest needles she could get her hands on. She was also the one that always stopped me when I tried to escape this horrid place. Whenever she caught me, she'd slap me hard enough to leave a bruise and was always able to pass it off as an injury I caused myself from a fall or something. I would try to tell Gigi, but all the nurses would back her up even though they knew the truth. You are trying to escape again, aren't you? I tried to shrink into the floor, suddenly wishing I knew that headhunter jutsu that Kaka-sensei used on the 10 months back. When I didn't answer, she continued shouting, making my head hurt more from her sheer volume. Well, are you? Answer me, brat. I'm not, really, I insisted as I heard most of the feet start leaving the room, leaving me alone with the loud woman. I just fell out of bed. Bull, her voice flat as her volume was lowered slightly. Not enough to make a difference, but it was a bit better. Your headband is already on and your IV is mysteriously missing from your arm. You honestly think that I believe that you aren't trying to escape? The IV ripped out when I tried to explain, but she wasn't listening to me. She never did. I don't think so. That's not going to work this time, brat. Her volume started raising again, making the pain in my head grow even worse. You're always trying to escape before you're even recovered. Well, maybe if you weren't such a bitch I wouldn't have to. I had wanted to say that for a while, but the tense silence that came after told me that I really shouldn't have. How dare you, ya little. I flinched away, knowing what was coming, but when the sound of skin hitting skin reached my ears, I became extremely confused at the lack of pain in my cheek. That's my student you're trying to hit. Kakashi's voice sounding colder than a steel katana left outside in a blizzard. Not to mention, he is a registered ninja, which means the laws concerning assaulting shinobi still applies to him. I'd think twice before even getting near him again. Is that clear? I heard her, as a pair of heels trot away through the door before slamming it angrily. Are you alright? He was sounding normal. Yeah, it was silent for a bit before I spoke up again. I hate her. I can see why. An arm reached under mine and helped me to my feet. I was a bit wobbly, but I was able to stand on my own, so he released me. Is it safe to say that she is another reason you hate the hospital? I nodded lightly in response, not wanting to irritate my headache. It still wasn't going away, in fact it was growing more severe now that she was gone. Kakashi was saying something else, but I didn't hear what it was as the pain just kept increasing. I sat down and removed my goggles, then pushed my hands against my eyes, trying to relieve it even just a bit. Naruto, Kakashi's voice asked, sounding worried. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Are you alright? My head hurts, I murmured to him. Right behind my eyes. How bad? Bad. A pile of folded cloth was placed on my lap that felt like a very familiar fabric. Get dressed, we're going to Rin's as soon as you're done. Rin. My medic nin friend, I'm going to talk to the Hokage in the meantime and see about replacing a certain nurse we both now know and hate. There was a bit of a swoosh that could only be from a shunshin. I smirked at that, hoping he was more successful than me. I sat there for a couple moments before convincing myself to let go of my eyes and figure out which piece of clothing was which. End Chapter 6. Start Chapter 7. Blindsided by twice the trouble. Chapter 7. Trouble 1. Tilde 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 tilde. When Kakashi came back, 5 minutes later, Naruto still wasn't finished getting dressed. He had his pants on right, but his t-shirt was backwards with one arm through his collar along with his head. He had apparently stopped halfway through the process and was now laying on the bed with some of the sheet bunched up in his hands, pressing them against his eyes again. It's gotten worse, hasn't it? He knelt down beside the bed, studying his student worriedly. The boy nodded into the blanket, not even speaking. All right, then let's get this shirt fixed and we'll leave. Rin will know what to do, promise. Kakashi became worried when Naruto sat up, his fingers reluctantly releasing the sheet, but didn't give any other response than that. Kakashi swiftly fixed the shirt and helped him into his jacket before picking the boy up on his back and shooting out the window faster than a flying kunai. He ran across the rooftops, reaching the edge of the village in record time. Seeing the gate, he dropped to the ground in front of the pair everyone called the Eternal Chunin. They jumped in surprise, but before they could start asking questions, Kakashi started answering them. Naruto and I are off to see a friend of mine, we'll be back tomorrow. Yes, the Hokage already knows of the trip and approved it. And no, Naruto's not feeling all that well, but he'll be fine when we come back. Yane. Before either of them had opened their mouths to say anything, the two were out of sight. He needed to get there as soon as possible. He didn't like seeing Naruto in such pain. He was supposed to be a happy, energetic person, but right now he was so lifeless it was like carrying a doll on his back. The only thing that assured him that Naruto was still there was the boy's hands gripping his sensei's shirt sleeves and his face buried in his flask jacket. It was only a couple minutes later that the pair landed in front of a wooden shack big enough for a couple people to live comfortably. They dropped to the ground, the older walking swiftly through the front door. Ren-chan, you here? Kakashi called, hoping she wasn't out collecting herbs or something. In the kitchen, Kakashi-kun, a voice called back from down the hall. The silver-haired man hid a sigh of relief before walking through the living room towards her. He stepped through the doorway into a simple kitchen to see the brunette grinding herbs. Her relatively short hair was being held back in a small ponytail to keep it out of the way. She was dressed in a light green short-sleeved shirt and a pair of black baggy pants with an apron to keep the herbs from making a mess of her clothes. I haven't seen you in a while. I thought you had that new Genin team to take care of. She smiled, looking up from her work but in no way stopping. Anyways, what brings you here today? He said, nodding his head towards the student on his back. Her eyes went wide when she caught sight of the small blonde as her hands finally ceased. Is that Naruto? Yes, he has a bit of a problem that I'd like to get your opinion about. What's wrong? She slipped her apron off and set it on the countertop before moving to the boy's side. It's kind of complicated. Well, let's go to the guest room and you can tell me what happened. She ushered him out of the room and down the hall to another. He went in and tried to put Naruto on the bed, but the boy was so wrapped up in the pain that Kakashi couldn't get his hands unclenched from his sleeves. The silver-haired man thought of trying to coax his student into releasing him, but he doubted that Naruto could make out words right now. Rin, do you mind? He gave her a pleading look. She nodded, flashing through some hand signs before placing a hand on the blonde's head, knocking the poor boy out. She helped Kakashi set him on the bed, freezing once she caught sight of the goggles. Those are Obito-kun's. Yeah, long story, but he earned them. Kakashi took the goggles off his head and placing them on the nightstand. But what you need to look at is under them. When Naruto came back from the second test, I noticed his eyes weren't tracking right. Somehow he lost his sight the night before and we can't figure out what caused it. That, and as of a couple minutes ago, he gained an intense pain behind his eyes, which was putting him in the state you saw a moment ago. Then why did you come here? The Konoha hospital is a lot more prepared for this type of thing, Rin pointed out as she began treating him anyways. I hardly have the technology for any of this. He wants to keep it a secret so he doesn't lose his ninja rank. That, and I doubt they'd treat him very well. He doesn't like them, and I saw firsthand that they don't like him either. She nodded, her hands glowing green as she held them over the boy's eyes. She closed her own so she could focus on what she couldn't see. As she did so, Kakashi stayed quiet to keep from disturbing her concentration. Several minutes passed by before the green glow faded and she looked up at him, her gaze telling the silver-haired man that the news she had for him was grim. What is it? I'd rather wait to say once he's woken up. That way I don't have to say it more than once. That bad? Yeah, she answered simply. But I was able to ease the pain so when he regains consciousness, it won't be so debilitating. Just tell me one thing, will he be able to see again? She was quiet for a moment, biting her lip as she decided whether or not to tell him. I don't know. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. 1 hour later. My hand shot up to my eyes as soon as I woke up, surprised by the lack of both the pain and my new goggles. Where are my goggles? I asked out loud, sure that either Kakashi or his friend, Rin, was in the room. Something scraped against wood to my left, making my head turn towards the sound. Here you go, a sweet voice said as something was placed in my lap. I picked it up, recognizing the increasingly familiar feel of my goggles. Thanks, I grinned as I sat up and slid them back on my head, finding it easier than tying my headband. You're Kaka-sensei's friend, right? Yes, I am. Her voice didn't hold the resentment that most adults do, which was a bit refreshing. My name is Rin. Nice to meet you, Rin-san. I'm Naruto. I held my hand out to shake, remembering the bit of manners that Gigi tried to teach me years ago. It's not that I didn't learn it, I just didn't put it into practice because none of the adults I was introduced to deserved it. With a bit of a chuckle she took my hand and shook it. Well, it's nice to meet you too. Is Kaka-sensei in here? I asked after a moment. I don't think so, but I've been wrong twice before. He can be really quiet sometimes. No, he's in the kitchen cooking some dinner. He can cook. He's lived by himself for a long time, it was either learn or eat out a lot. What about instant ramen? You can't eat that all the time. I do. It's not very good for you. What are you saying? It's great food. I was just about to give her a long lecture on the wonders of ramen when I heard footsteps coming down the hallway followed by a delicious smell that made me halt. Unfortunately it wasn't ramen, but whatever it was certainly edible at the very least. Kaka-sensei, what's that? A door squeaked open, intensifying the smell slightly. Grilled cheese, he answered, sounding amused. I figured you needed something relatively healthy. Plus you have to really try to make a mess if you're eating a sandwich. Why would you care if I made a mess? I followed his footsteps as he walked across the floor before he placed a plate on my lap. Because I'd be the one cleaning it up. It smells good. The food wasn't hot, so I figured it was one of the first out of the pan for my convenience. But that didn't matter to me. Food was food and I felt like I haven't eaten in days. Which got me thinking as I ate, has it really been that long since I had eaten the ramen after the first test? At this point I didn't even know how long it has been since then. So instead of torturing myself with unanswered questions, I asked Kakashi. Sensei. The air tensed as the pair stopped chewing their food. This brought up a whole other batch of questions that I decided to ignore for the time being. If being blind had any advantages, it was that you could pretend not to notice the mood in the room and no one would know the difference. How long has it been since the prelims? Finally decided that you wanted to know how long you were out, huh? Kakashi asked with a chuckle that sounded kind of relieved. I nodded. 1 day. A day? Yep, it could have been worse. If it weren't for Fluffy, you'd still be out. But I'm so far behind. Everyone else has already started training and I don't even know who my sensei is yet. Relax, everyone else are still recovering from their wounds as well. I doubt anyone has started training yet. Oh yeah, we settled into a tense silence as we ate. Eventually I couldn't take it anymore and spoke up. Alright, what's going on here? I demanded after I finished my sandwich. What do you mean? Rin was clearly pretending not to know what I was talking about. You two have been walking on eggshells since I woke up. There was a surprised silence between the two that got on my nerves. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I don't notice these things. Might as well spill. Kakashi's chair creaking like he was reclining. I don't quite remember him sitting down in one, but that was probably because of the food. Can't put it off forever. I know. Rin sounded sad as she spoke. I examined your eyes while you were out. Is that why my goggles were off? Yes. She took a nervous breath before continuing. Anyways, the eyes themselves are undamaged. Everything worked like it was supposed to until I got to the optic nerve. The nerve was, for the most part, severed a few centimeters behind the eyes. It's not completely detached, just enough so you can't see through them. Did you understand that, Naruto? Kakashi asked after a silent moment. I think so. The connection between my eyes and my brain was cut, right? Yeah, but my question is how? There was a bit of medical chakra still remaining on the nerves, so I'm pretty sure we can safely assume it was done with a medical jutsu of some type. So it was done purposefully. Though Rin said nothing, I had the feeling that she nodded. Is it reversible? Not as far as I know. The nerve could probably be reconnected if it wasn't separated by chakra. If it was from regular wound, we could try to patch them, or, if we had to, grow them back. The person that did this, did it in such a way that it practically ensures that they can't be fixed by someone like me. Someone like Tsunade might be able to, but, even then I doubt it would be much of a chance. The pair of them continued talking. I think they were trying to figure out who had the skill and opportunity to do this to me. But wasn't listening. I let their voices fade from my hearing, not wanting to hear any more. Even though I didn't show it, I was secretly hoping that she would be able to do something, that this was reversible. Now that I knew it wasn't, that bit of hope fled, taking my resolve with me. Without my sight I knew, despite my nature, that it would be practically impossible to achieve my goal of Hokage. I'd end up risking my life every time I went on a mission, even if it was just simple D ranks. I would be useless to the village. There was practically no point to staying a ninja anymore. I might as well let the civilians kill me. Naruto, My name coupled with a gentle hand on my shoulder got me out of my thoughts. Are you alright? Yeah, I flashed a smile at her even though I didn't feel like grinning. I'm fine. There was silence before she spoke up again. I'm sorry, her voice sounding close to tears. I wish I could fix this but I just don't have the skills to do something so complicated. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes for a moment to collect my thoughts. I didn't have time to be upset about this. I only had a month before the finals. If I became upset about this now all it would do is make me lose valuable time. I had to stay focused. It's not your fault, I said after I opened my eyes to the blank world around me. Speaking of fault, Kakashi said, interrupting whatever I was going to say next. I might know whose it is. Naruto, you said earlier that you ran into Kabuto the day before, right? Yeah, what of it? Before you woke up I caught him in Sasuke's hospital room prepared to kill him. I stopped him but he killed all the guards stationed there with some high-quality medical ninjutsu. Kabuto, but he's a Konoha ninja. Why would he try to kill Sasuke? I don't think you understand what I'm getting at, Naruto. Kakashi sighed before continuing. Kabuto was the only one in the whole exams that has shown himself to be well versed in medical jutsu. He's also the only one with the opportunity to use said jutsus against you. I'm saying he's probably the one responsible for blinding you. But, he was practically harmless, for a ninja. A ninja's greatest weapon is deception, Kakashi said gently. If it makes you feel any better, I didn't think it could have been him either. It doesn't, I muttered. I heard him take a breath to say more when I interrupted him. Can we change the subject please? If you want. Why did it hurt this morning but not when it happened? He fused chakra into the nerve when he cut it. Right now, the Kyuubi's chakra is acting like antibodies and attacking it. Apparently your Baiju doesn't like foreign chakra too much. That's where the pain was coming from, the two types of chakra fighting each other. It didn't hurt before because the chakra had yet to recognize the intruder and after it did, it took time for it to get there. It had to struggle past the seal and through your chakra pathways, all which took until you started feeling the pain. So the Kyuubi chakra was trying to get rid of the other stuff. Yes. If it did get rid of it, would I be able to get my sight back? There was silence for a moment as she thought. Probably not. Any Baiju chakra is highly poisonous, especially the Kyuubi's. Even if it is able to get rid of the other chakra, the damage it would have done to the nerve would be too great to fix. Optic nerves are not meant to contain such potent chakra, they're just too delicate. Why doesn't it hurt now? Because I used my medical chakra to make it seem that the foreign chakra is actually yours. As long as it feels like yours, the Baiju chakra won't attack it. But it won't last forever, you'll have to come back here in about 2 months for me to repeat the procedure. You should have just let the Kyuubi get rid of it, I whispered after a moment. But there could be something that can be done that I don't know about. Letting the Kyuubi destroy your optic nerve would ruin any chance you might have had with it like this. But who knows where I'll be in 2 months. I was getting more nervous as I spoke. I know you said you're not sure if something can be done, but wouldn't it be easier to keep me knocked out as the Kyuubi did its thing? There are better medical ninjas than me, Naruto. They might know about something I don't and I wouldn't want to inconvenience them if they do. But I'm not going to tell anyone else about this. You don't know that. I do. I'm not going to lose my ninja status for a maybe. I turned away from the pair of them stubbornly. There's something else, isn't there? Kakashi asked after a moment. I pretended not to hear him. Naruto, are you scared of something? No, I'm not. My head snapped back towards him. I'm not scared of anything. Ghosts. The word itself made me shudder, which pretty much proved me wrong. Now, what's worrying you? It hurt, I said quietly, not even sure if he heard me. It really hurt. I don't want to feel that ever again. You won't have to. A hand was placed gently on my shoulder. I guessed it was Rin because Kakashi's hand was bigger than that. Just stop by once every 2 months and you won't have to worry. But I don't want to do that all my life. No offense but I just can't. Then just do so for 6 months. If you don't find someone that can help in 6 months, then I'll do as you said and keep you unconscious until the foreign chakra is gone. I could almost hear the smile in her voice. Does that sound better? Yeah, I guess. Well, this is as good of a time to change the subject as any. Kakashi sounded oddly chipper. We need to chat about that fight of yours coming up. You haven't even told me who I'm going to fight. I glared in his direction, gaining a chuckle for my trouble. That's not what I want to talk about. He started to talk in a scolding tone which worried me. You told me you wouldn't disobey my orders, right? Yeah. Didn't I also say that you were not ready to fight Kiba? But I won. Yes, you did, and that's the only reason I haven't pulled you from the competition just yet. But I will, if my conditions aren't met. What conditions? I want you to come up with a substitute for your sight. What? You barely won against Kiba. Everyone that's in the next stage is a lot better than him. You're going to need to be able to see or come up with some way to make it like you're seeing so you have a chance of winning. But how am I supposed to do that? I don't know, that's what you're going to have to figure out over the next month. He paused before speaking again. Unfortunately, I'm going to be unavoidably preoccupied, so I won't be able to help you. But don't think I won't be able to know if you succeeded. I'll be waiting for you inside, ready to ask the question. What question? The question, he emphasized the, with a finger tapping my nose. You mean that question? But of course, he spoke as if he was smiling. How else will I know? You'll have had a month to get used to it, so anything else wouldn't work. So you're serious about all this, huh? Damn straight. With your opponent, you're going to need all the help you can get. Wait, you know who I'm fighting? Didn't I tell you? He sounded way too innocent to be believed. No, you didn't. I don't even know who made it through to the next round. Well, as you know, Sasuke and Gaara made it through, as well as Shino, Kankuro, Tamari, Shikamaru, and, of course, you. He spoke kind of slowly, like he was purposely avoiding what I wanted to hear. The ones you missed were Neji, Duzo, and Fu. Who were they against? Neji versed his cousin Hinata, Duzo went against Choji, and Fu was against Zaku. How did Neji win? Hinata has that cool eye jutsu that can pretty much see everything. So does Neji, and he's older and more trained in its use. That, and he apparently holds a lot of resentment towards her. He almost killed her in that match. My mouth dropped open, stunned. It took a couple seconds to process this, one Konoha trying to kill another out of hate. The thought of it was horrifying. But it was even worse than that, and I told Kakashi as much. Who in their right mind would try to kill their family? I asked quietly, my voice rising in anger. That insane. A family is a gift and all he's doing is treating them like dirt. Trust me, I know. I know about as well as you do. I gave him a funny look, before shaking my head and continued my thoughts. Someone should teach him that. Glad you think so, because you'll have the chance to do just that. I looked at him, about to ask why when he answered it for me. Your first opponent is none other than Neji. I was silent for a bit, my mind processing what he was saying before I burst out laughing. What's so funny? Rin asked as I struggled to breathe. Neji's going to be a hard person to beat. Not only is he a genius in his clan's Taijutsu, but he has his Byakugan down to almost an art. Exactly, I said between bouts of laughter. Neji's seeing everything, he's fighting me. The one that sees all vs the one that can't see at all. Heh, this is going to be fun. End chapter 7. This is the end of part 3. If you enjoyed this what if, then like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Peace out, people.